Let's talk about nonprofit fundraising. One of the most common questions I get from folks is, can I just hire someone to do my fundraising and just pay them a percent of the money they bring in? Or can I hire a grant writer and give them a portion of the grant that they win if they win the grant? In this video, I'm going to share 7 reasons why this method of compensating fundraising professionals is considered by the industry to be somewhat ethically challenging, but I'm going to share some things that you can do instead to work effectively with these fundraising professionals to raise the critical money you need for your cause. So let's get into it. Welcome back. My name is Amber Melanie Smith. I'm a nonprofit founder and social entrepreneur who makes these videos here on YouTube all about creating a social impact, starting a nonprofit or social enterprise, and more. I hope that you take some time to check out the rest of my video library. I've got lots of great content in here to help you along your social impact journey. If you're looking for a little bit more in-depth training on how to start a nonprofit or to develop a sustainable fundraising plan, definitely be sure to check out my online courses available at foundertofulltime.com. And join my newsletter. I'll leave the link to subscribe to that below, where I send out tips and sometimes fundraising opportunities and more to help you along your journey. I want to start off by saying that I 100% get it. If you are a new or small nonprofit and you don't have a lot of money to invest in fundraising, it seems like a great deal or a great idea to try to find someone who can do the upfront work to fundraise or write that grant, and then they get paid based on their success. It's how a lot of other businesses work. It's how sometimes sales works, but it's not how the nonprofit industry works all the time. And I'm going to talk about some of the reasons why fundraising professionals have gotten together to educate the rest of us on some of the challenges related to this method of compensation. And I hope as you go through these, you can put yourselves in the shoes of these fundraisers and kind of see where they're coming from. And I'm not going to just leave you hanging by saying, don't do this. I will give you some ideas on how to approach this a little bit differently so that everyone gets what they need and it's equitable and fair. So reason number 1 that there are some ethical and logistical concerns with commission-based compensation and fundraising is the conflict of interest, right? So you want your fundraisers to be very mission focused. They should be inspired and motivated to fundraise based on the knowledge that if they bring in money, they're going to be helping the impact of a wonderful cause grow. So if you introduce commission-based practices into fundraising, what happens is people then shift their attention into how much money can they make instead of can I drive the mission forward. And this can result in some shortcuts or other behavior that might turn off donors or create uncomfortable situations with others in the organization. So conflict of interest is one of the top reasons to avoid commission-based compensation for fundraisers. And by the way, a lot of these thoughts come from the organization, the Association of Fundraising Professionals. I'll be sure to leave the link to their website below as well if you want to read more about them and this concept yourself too. The second reason is donor relationships, and this kind of goes along with the conflict of interest idea. If a donor knows that your fundraisers are being paid on a commission basis, then suddenly they feel like their donations are simply being used to enrich an individual as opposed to further the cause, which is the whole reason they donate in the first place. And this belief can damage the trust that they have of the organization and of the person fundraising too, which, as we know, can lead to fewer donations anyway. The third reason is probably the biggest, if not one of the biggest reasons that there are concerns with commission-based fundraising models, and that is the equity and fairness idea, right? And this comes down to 2 different things. One, if you have a fundraiser on staff and you have this commission-based structure for them, but no one else in the organization, there's a feeling of unfairness between the staff. even though we know that all of the staff on an organization play some kind of vital role to the fundraising success. A fundraiser can't do their job if the programs manager isn't doing an awesome job executing on the program and delivering the social impact that the organization's mission is centered around. They can't do their job if the administrative assistant isn't keeping the insurance bills paid and the organization loses its protection and is liable to accidents. Like, it might not seem like everyone is directly involved in fundraising, but everyone in the organization is doing their part to make sure that the program succeeds, the fundraising succeeds, the whole vision of the organization succeeds. And so this commission-based structure creates potential resentment and a sense of inequality amongst the staff that you really want to avoid for the cohesion and progress of your mission. But the other side of this equity and fairness argument is to the fundraiser themselves. If you are hiring an outside consultant or a contractor, especially to do your fundraising, there are many things out of their control regarding whether they're going to be successful getting a donation. I once heard that even professional grant writers only get 1 in 10 grants that they write for. So that's not a good business model for that grant writer or that fundraising person. If they write all these grants, they develop all these fundraising initiatives, and then something outside of their control prevents the donations from coming in and they never get paid. But they already did the work up front. So imagine in your other job, if you have another job or other people with other jobs, imagine that they were expected to come in and they would only get paid based on very specific outcome that is dictated by how well the economy is doing or what else is happening that day in the city. Like, there's so many different random factors that can impact fundraising, especially with grants. You might write the best grant ever, but you never know what other organizations are competing for that same grant funding, that application cycle. And your mission might be totally worthy and you might have a very well-written grant, but you don't know if those 10 other organizations are also worthy and also have amazingly written grants. So paying someone based on the structure for fundraising when so much is out of your control is a concerning practice for the fundraisers themselves. The fourth is professional standards, and I alluded to this before when I mentioned the Association of Fundraising Professionals, or AFP. Definitely look them up. This commission-based structure of paying fundraisers is considered to be against the professional standards of the fundraising industry. And so if you are doing it, you are sort of outside of the best practices accepted by these really, esteemed organizations, and you might have trouble getting the resources or help that you need from other organizations in that same vein. So making sure that you are aware of these best practices and you're following the same level of professionalism can be helpful to bringing in donations. The fifth reason is impact on mission. This is similar to conflict of interest, but it's a little bit different because in this case, we're not specifically concerned with the individual fundraisers' motives shifting to getting more money versus upholding the mission. We're worried about the impact on the mission overall, because when you shift to commission-based fundraising, suddenly the organization's focus as an organization becomes doing the things, the activities that are likely to generate the most revenue, as opposed to doing the things that are going to generate the highest social impact, which as a nonprofit is your top priority. So I can give you an example. And while I've never engaged in commission-based fundraising, I do think of this one fundraiser that I used to do years and years ago that was a fashion fundraiser. And it was an idea that one of our volunteers had, and it was a great idea at the time. We were a small organization and we didn't have a lot of avenues for bringing in new money. So we were like, let's put on a fashion show and see if we can generate some money there. Well, the fashion show was a big success. It grew over a couple of years to attract 500 guests every single year, and it was raising some good money. But Putting on this fashion show took 9 out of 12 months of the year of me and my team's effort. That's all that time. That's 75% of the year that we were focusing on putting on a good fashion show instead of working on deepening our impact on the community. So this is just an example of how if you shift to a fundraising focus without the impact on the mission focus, that you're kind of in danger because there's a time cost in what you put in to fundraising. So that's one example of how commission-based fundraising could impact your mission as well. Number 6 is public perception. This is kind of like donor perception, but on a broader scale. If the public learns that you have a commission-based fundraising structure, that also affects their trust, because just like with the donors, they're thinking, well, how much of this money is just going into, a commission for the fundraiser as opposed to the rest of the mission. And the 7th reason is that there might be actually some legal or regulatory issues in some regions. You definitely want to become familiar with the rules in your state or community on all of these things, regardless of even if you were thinking of commission-based fundraising at any point. But there might actually be some rules against your ability to do that anyway. And of course, you want everything you do in a nonprofit to be above board. So I've given these 7 reasons why you might not want to consider commission-based fundraising ethically and logistically, but what do you do instead, right? So if you're a small organization especially, what should you do? I can tell you that the general leaning of the fundraising world is that you should pay your fundraisers simply a respectable salary, just like you should pay any of your nonprofit staff a respectable salary. So salary-based compensation, transparency about how you fundraise to the general public, a top focus on the mission. These are all the things that the fundraising industry and sector want you to focus on instead of commission-based fundraising. But I'm going to give you a little bit more actionable tips here. I'm going to give you a couple of tips on what you can do to amplify your fundraising if you don't have a very large budget, and then some things you can do if you do have a budget. So what to do instead if you don't have a budget? Number 1 is you can bootstrap this thing. This is what I did. I know it takes a little bit longer, but you can teach yourself grant writing and fundraising and take on some of this work yourself. Depending on your existing skills, you might be able to learn these things pretty quickly. If you're a decent writer, for example, grant writing is kind of a very specific animal, so to speak, but once you kind of learn how it works, you can pick it up pretty fast and generate grants fairly rapidly. Fundraising, same thing. It's all about relationship building and learning someone else's values and sharing your values and seeing where they align and then inspiring them to make a gift to the organization over time. So that's one thought, is you can just do it yourself, DIY it. Number 2 is there are many universities out there, very excitingly, that are offering classes on nonprofit work, fundraising to be included. You can partner with a college class or a college who's offering internships, and ask them to pair you with students who are trying to get some grant writing or fundraising experience, and have them work with you as an intern or a volunteer while they are getting class credit. If you can pay them, all the better, but these class credit opportunities and internships are out there too. Third, along the same lines, is there are many folks out there who are trying to start grant writing and fundraising consulting businesses of their own. If they're in the very beginning of their journey, they often have a need to create a portfolio to demonstrate their success. You might be able to find someone willing to volunteer their time to do a fundraising campaign for you or write a grant for you as they're just getting started, if of course they love your mission as much as you do. If you're in a position where you do have a budget, you can approach things a little bit differently as well. You can try just a small pilot project with a contracted or consulting-based fundraiser or grant writer. Just one grant or one small campaign, test it out. Don't make a huge financial commitment, but play around with what's possible with the partnership of someone who has that expertise as a contractor or consultant outside of your organization. If you're able to show the return on investment, then you know you've got something there, and you can make a case to your board and make an investment in your budget in the following fiscal year to invest more in working with that partner because they've proven that they have a good ROI, and now you can build on that further. But you're paying them a flat fee for the work that they're putting in, regardless of if they are successful in getting the grant or the success of the fundraising campaign. If you can hire staff, hire a part-time or full-time fundraiser. If you just want someone in the beginning of their career to get you started, maybe that's all you can afford on your staff payroll right now, start with a fundraising assistant of some kind, and anything that you can delegate to someone, especially if you're an executive director or founder of the organization, anything that you can delegate to someone to support the fundraising frees up more of your time as a leader to go out and do the big major gift, the donor relations, etc., that might even bring in more money too. Instead of a commission, this is number 3 here, instead of a commission, you might be able to offer your entire nonprofit staff a performance-based bonus at the end of the year. But just make sure that you're doing this equitably. You have a system in place to make sure it's fair for all of the nonprofit staff, not just 1 or 2 of them. Because like I was saying before, fundraising truly is a team effort. In my organization, I can't go spend the time with a donor unless I know the 12 other things going on in the organization are being taken care of by someone else. So it's all part of the big puzzle of running a nonprofit. And of course, there are also non-monetary benefits you can provide staff. This is this fourth thing you can do. Generous paid time off, a flexible work schedule, hybrid or remote opportunities if that's something your staff needs and wants. Helping with health insurance coverage, all these benefits that you can offer your staff are also an incentive for your fundraising staff and all the rest of your staff to stick around and continue their work for your amazing mission. Nonprofit professionals of all types deserve to be fairly and equitably compensated, and I hope that this video has helped you kind of see more about the dialogue happening around this question of commission-based practices for fundraising professionals. I'd love to hear what you think at this time. What are some ways that you've worked with fundraisers or had fundraisers on your staff and formed a really strong partnership with them and made it a really good arrangement that propels your mission forward? Share more in the comments below. As I mentioned before, if you are in the process of starting a nonprofit or developing a sustainable fundraising plan, check out my website, foundertofulltime.com, where I have those online courses you can check out and enroll in if they are for you. I also have my newsletter, as I mentioned. I'll leave that link to subscribe below this video, but I share grant opportunities and other fundraising opportunities, social impact news, my latest video, other things like that. So you definitely want to subscribe, and of course you can opt out anytime. Finally, I have my group on Facebook called Change the World or Bust. We have over 5,000 people in there from around the world making an impact, and I'd love to have you join our little changemaker community. So come on by, and I hope to see you there. Once again, I'm Amber Melanie Smith, and I'll see you next time. Bye.